Welcome to the Music Reel. My name's Nicola Burton. I'm the host today. I have Manny from the Pushworth group with me, and our very special guest today is Mr. Sean Sennett. Now, Sean, many of you will know, he's a music journalist, but he's also a prolific songwriter and artist who hails from Brisbane. But as I said, Sean, before, when I think of music, I think of you with all of the work you've done, particularly in Time Off, where you made music so accessible to people, but also you created this valuable marketing conduit for artists. So, Sean, welcome to the Music Reel today.
Nice to see you both. Thanks for having me.
It's lovely to see you. Now, you've got your podcast at the moment, Time to Talk. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that was interesting. I've been interviewing people for 30 years, and I wanted to keep the conversation going. And podcasting, it's funny, I found a status update I put on Facebook 5 years ago. You know, you have the Facebook memories.
Yeah.
And I put up, would you rather hear a podcast or see a written interview? And 5 years ago, 90% of the people that responded said definitely a written interview. And obviously there's been a massive change in the culture since then, where now podcasting has really, really boomed. And we started recording them sort of middle of last year, late last year. And then they kind of sat there for a while, you know, sort of worked out how to get it out to people. And then in COVID, it seemed like a good time to do it. But really, it's a continuum of the Time Off thing. It's like, I like having the conversation about music. I want to keep it going. And I like the fact that with a podcast, you can take the listener right into the space with the artist you're talking to.
It's a long-form conversation, which we don't normally have, which I think is so valuable. As you say, you get right into the story. So I think for us... Well, we'd just like to know, I guess it's changed the lives of so many people in the industry. What happened to you?
Well, it's a funny thing. It's like the pause button's been hit. I keep a diary of all the shows I go to every year. And probably like yourselves, it's higher than most people, but I normally see 75, 80 gigs a year, which, you know, it's
a lot.
It's a commitment to do that. Yeah, and this has gone on for a long, long time, but it feels normal. And just obviously gone. And, you know, the amount of people I'm talking to about the work they're doing is slowed right down, and no gigs are happening. But what I am finding is that people are getting in contact now. Everybody's working on a record. Everybody's writing a song. Everybody's looking to do a vinyl album or do something that's creative and takes them back into a home studio environment.
The
Absolutely.
creativity seems to have exploded, which I think is great.
I know. We're going to have this big boom of brand new kids, and records are going to come out in, you know, a year or so after this thing's finished.
It's going to be great. Manny?
Well, Sean, I guess when we first met was all of maybe 30 years ago. God, so it's been an incredible journey since, I guess, the Griffith University days. So there's a bit of history there. But what I've noticed of late is you've got a couple of really impressive recording projects, like at the moment collaborations with Kate Ceberano and Mr. Kilbey from the church, and also Mr. Hurst. So obviously, tell us a little bit about how those, you know, collaborations worked, or actually how they came about, so to speak.
Well, how they came about is kind of interesting. I had sort of, ever since I met you, Manny, at Griffith Uni back in the dark ages, had been in bands and so forth and writing songs. I always kind of did it as a side thing with doing my writing about music. And I put a few records out, and some under my name, some under other names. And I got signed to Mushroom Publishing eventually. And Mushroom Publishing, this is going back 20 years, they had a thing where they'd invite writers from around the country and some international people to come in and do a writing session where you'd meet a person you never met before. You'd have breakfast in the morning, go and write a song during the day. Then in the afternoon, you go and record the track, and it would be a demo for, you know, hopefully some kind of release for somebody. And I met Rob at one of those, and I was obviously aware that, you know, he's Rob Hurst from Midnight Oil, he's a legend, and written so many amazing songs. And we wrote a song that day, and the song literally sat in a drawer for like 15 years. And over that time, we developed a really good friendship. That's the basis of our relationship, is purely friendship. Music's very much a secondary thing. And Rob said to me just after I sold Time Off, he said, I'll come up to Brisbane and play some drums for you. We'll make a record. And to be honest, it was too daunting. So I think I just put it off another 5 or 6 or 7 years. Then finally, he came up, we went to Black Box, and I'd been in a band called The Incredible Strand with Derek Haas and Jeff Lovejoy. So Jeff was recording, Derek was playing, and then later Jason Milhouse, who has record works over at Cooperoo, got involved and did the bulk of the record. So Rob and I, that whole thing's just out of just friendship. I just love hanging out with the guy. We love writing songs together, but we also just love just hanging out. So, you know, and the Kate thing, Kate and I had written together. She heard a record I did with a band called Crush 76 and liked it and suggested we should do some stuff. Yeah. Then when she actually did some singing on a record too, and then literally 20 years went by, and I found a tape that I had of a song we'd written together, and I sent it to her, and she said, "Oh, I'd like that. I'm going to record it." So we got this thing because of the tyranny of distance, you know, people writing and recording in isolation. I'm in Brisbane, she's in Melbourne. So I think twice we were in a room together and we kind of wrote together in the traditional way. But the bulk of those songs was I would send her lyrics, and if the lyrics struck a chord with her, she'd write something, put a melody to it, put chords to it, and turn those lyrics into a song. And then I met Steve Kilbey at a Brisbane Writers Festival event. They asked me to interview Steve for that. And, you know, we just spoke about his poetry and his working life. And I was working on a record called I Left My Heart in Highgate Hill, which was a collection of 10 female singers from Brisbane singing songs I'd either written or co-written. And we were getting to the end of that, and I thought it'd be good to have a different male voice on there as a lyric writer. So I said, "Steve, do you want to write one set of lyrics for me?" And he did that. By the time I got them, I moved on from the idea and we'd finished the Highgate Hill record. But I still had this really cool set of lyrics. I'm working with Kate, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to send these to Kate, but I'm not going to tell her where they came from. So she'll obviously assume that I've written them, even though I hadn't written these particular set of lyrics. And she sent a song back. And I said to Steve, "Hey, you got one? I'm going to give you another idea for a song." So I'd give Steve a title. He'd send something back, send those to Kate. And when Kate had done 2 or 3, I mentioned that Steve was involved. And I purposely didn't mention his name because Kate was on such a great run. I didn't want her to think, I've now got to skew my thinking to possibly suit Steve Kilbey from the church. I wanted her to remain true to what she was doing. And then as we were probably halfway through the record, I kind of said, "Hey, I'm doing it, but Steve's doing it. Steve and I are doing some stuff together. Kate and I are doing stuff together." So the whole thing was done via remote. You know, she's in Melbourne, he's in Sydney, I'm in Brisbane, and finally we got to make the record together.
Brilliant.
And that was released at the end of January, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
It
was a bit of a long... That's right, and we were lucky that we got out to do some promo for it, but obviously no gigs are going to happen. And likewise with Rob, you know, it's like yourself, Mandy, you don't release anything for years, and then suddenly you have things come out on top of each other. Rob and I were lucky enough to do 1 gig at the Tivoli, then that's kind of it. But, you know, we live in a different world now, don't we? We sort of think back to the old time off days. If a local band made a 7-inch single, it was like unbelievable. It was mind-blowing. There's so much work went into that. Whereas now the same amount of creative work can go in, but it's so much easier to put your music out there into the wider world. It's so simple. It's so much more cost-effective to do it now.
It is. And now it's about building that brand and cutting through the noise so that you can sort of cut through the millions of other artists that are doing exactly the same thing.
That's the thing, yeah.
Yeah. So what are you thinking moving forward? I mean, you know this industry better than anyone. What do you think is going to be the key difference once we get back out there and we can actually go back to gigs again?
Oh, it's really hard, isn't it? Because, you know, this virus, I mean, even this morning I was reading about, you know, they think the virus might not be the virus they thought it was a week ago. It could be more of a blood cell-based virus. So the thing's just sort of morphing and changing. And you see those statistics in America and Europe, it's just horrific, the numbers of people they've lost. And given we've sort of, as they keep saying, flattened the curve here, I'm not in a massive rush to stand in a room with 3,000 sweaty people. I saw Michael Gudinski said this morning that he doesn't think we'll see international touring here till March, April next year, which, you know, we're talking on 12 months away. But I guess what that will see is a massive spike once we sort it out in local bands. So, I'm getting approached by people with different ideas all the time. We've heard about the drive-in idea. There's the home concert idea. I think a lot of people are going to go to ground and write a lot more music, be working on their records they can drop during COVID or after COVID. I was talking to a musician this morning. I asked him how he was going with his project. And he's like, oh, well, I'm recording bass on GarageBand. The drummer's doing something else. The songwriter's sending demos in. We're all converging and creating something new. And I think it's really going to change the way we think, not only in music, but just as entire culture.
Yeah. It's changing the whole perspective of community, isn't it? You're connected virtually now instead.
Yeah. I mean, I personally lost an uncle to COVID. So, I understand the ramifications of, what can happen. But I can see living here in this bubble of Southeast Queensland, I feel like we're on pause. It almost feels like how we used to live, Manny, back in the days when I first met you. It's like everything's a slower pace. Yeah. That doesn't disagree with me.
Absolutely. No, we've seen, as you've said, we've seen 3 generations of music at the moment, and it's absolutely intriguing as you said, it's so much easier to record these days with, using the technologies that we currently have. So I guess the most exciting thing, for me is I've always been the champion of independent music. As much as I love major labels and yes, we have been involved in significant projects on that side, I've always wanted to nurture that sort of indie culture, those really critical bands that, things we need that keep us all vital. So what I'm noticing is, same thing is that I've got artists that we manage that are writing with people interstate via Zoom, via Skype, via other, say mediums as well. So I'm looking forward to the actual project. But I guess that's one change. The other question I've got for you is, how do you think the live scene will adapt to that?
Gee, that's really interesting. I mean, you're probably the man to answer that question better than anybody.
I love your opinion on how you think it's going to play out, because I've got one example from Melbourne music venues that are basically saying we're going to put tables because of the 4 square meters. It's now a dinner and show concept. We have to serve dinner, and it'll be more about engaging. It's more. The act's going to have to be significantly better than just being on stage in front of 1,000 or 1,500 drunk punters. They're now actually going to have to engage and script a show. I think that's now going to challenge those musicians tenfold.
So you see something, I don't want to use the word cabaret in a disparaging way, but something where it's more of a form piece where beginning, middle, and end, there's some kind of scripting, some kind of engagement. It's interesting, as I remember seeing that wonderful Bowie tribute down at the Powerhouse there, and they had people at tables, and it was great. It was a nice big room, people at tables. That would work, you'd imagine. You'd have to think too that when this thing finally breaks, we're going to be gagging to see some bands. And I think the thing Gadinsky was suggesting today was this is going to be a wonderful period for Australian music through to March, April, where it's going to be about seeing Australian bands, seeing local bands. Because the thing for me is, with technology, it's been wonderful to have some of your favourite artists beamed into your lounge room, but I don't really get a kick out of that after the initial rush is over. I want the sticky carpet. I want people bumping into me. I want to feel that energy of being in a room.
That's it. You want to feel it in your body, and that's the whole
thing. Absolutely. It's going to be interesting because, sorry to interrupt, but I feel like a younger generation that hasn't experienced what we've experienced over 3 generations where live entertainment was prevalent in this country. So let's say you're a new kid, you're on the block, you're about to turn to 18, and all you know is what you've experienced over this COVID timeframe. It's going to be very interesting for those kids who just understand online and streaming to then suddenly go out for their first gig. So they're 17, they're about to turn 18. Wow, what a thrilling situation for those kids that are actually.
Wait until that bass speaker hits you in the solar plex. Yes. You're going to feel it.
I can't wait to see those kids experience live music for the first time. It'll be very interesting turnabout for them.
So. Well, look, Sean, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been great to see you, hear you, which is amazing. We can do this via Zoom. It's wonderful. And we will be recommending everyone to listen to Time to Talk, your podcast. Stay connected.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's great. I loved the Ian Chappell one. It's really
I might retire after the In Chapel one. That was one of the best of all time.
It was cool. Great. So, yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thanks, Nicola. Thanks, Maddie.
And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Sean. Bye, everyone.
Stay well, guys. Bye-bye.